Was Rome truly doomed before it even began? The Danube simmered, a muddy, restless serpent winding through a landscape perpetually bruised by conflict. Not a landscape of sun-drenched vineyards and marble columns, no. This was the borderland, the ragged edge of an empire bleeding out, and at its heart, a story of shattered legacies, desperate gambits, and the chilling echoes of a vanished power. It's a tale not of heroes and triumphs, but of men scrambling for scraps of glory amidst the wreckage of an empire, a slow, agonizing unraveling narrated by the dust of forgotten battles and the whispered curses of betrayed ambitions. Let's dive in, shall we? First, there's Attila the Hun, a name that still conjures images of a storm-tossed horde, a whirlwind of destruction. He wasn't born a king, not initially. He rose from the steppes, a charismatic, brutal leader who united disparate tribes under his banner. He was a collector of power, a ruthless pragmatist who understood that survival meant absorbing, not resisting. His empire wasn't built on grand pronouncements or legal codes. It was forged in the heat of battle, cemented with fear. He wasn't a strategist, he was a force of nature, and his arrival in the 440s sent tremors through the Roman world. He wasn't interested in conquering Rome, not directly. He wanted something far more valuable, wealth, and he wasn't alone. Enter Deco, Attila's right hand, a shadowy figure who reinvented himself as king of the Syri after his master's death. A fascinating, almost unbelievable transformation. Imagine a man who'd spent his life steeped in violence and conquest suddenly seeking legitimacy through marriage. He wasn't marrying for love, of course. He married a Thuringian princess, or perhaps a Hunnic one, or both. The details remain frustratingly murky. His goal: to solidify his power base, to carve out a small, independent kingdom in the chaos left behind by Attila's collapse. He was a master of manipulation, a political chameleon, and his story is a chilling reminder that power often comes dressed in the guise of a new identity. Then there was Hernac, Attila's son, a man who, unlike his father, wasn't interested in brute force. He wasn't a conqueror, he was a survivor. He realized that the Hunnic Empire was crumbling, that the subject peoples were rising up, and he sought a new foothold, a small fiefdom south of the Danube on East Roman soil. He didn't fight, he negotiated. He settled in the Dobruja, a swampy region bordering Romania and Bulgaria, and quietly faded into obscurity, a footnote in the grand narrative of empire. A surprisingly subdued ending for a son of Attila. Now let's jump across the sea to Rome, a city drowning in its own grandeur. The year is 410. Alaric, the Visigothic king, isn't interested in conquering Rome. He's not seeking to topple an emperor or seize a throne. He's driven by a simple, primal need: survival. His people were facing starvation, and Rome, despite its wealth and power, was failing to provide. The sack of Rome wasn't a calculated act of aggression. It was a desperate plea for sustenance, a brutal demonstration of the empire's vulnerability. Galla Placidia, the Emperor Honorius' sister, became a chilling symbol of this vulnerability. Captured and dragged away as a trophy, she was eventually married to Alaric, a strategic move designed to appease the Goths and buy Rome some time. It wasn't a love match, it was a political transaction, a grim exchange of lives for fleeting security. But the story doesn't end with Alaric. The Goths, a diverse group of tribes with a long and turbulent history, were far from unified. There was Fritigern, a leader vying for control, attempting to unite the Tervingi and Gruthungi, two distinct Gothic groups, under his banner. He won a victory at Hadrianople, a stunning triumph, but it proved to be a Pyrrhic one. He died before he could consolidate his power, leaving a fractured and vulnerable empire. Let's shift our focus to the east, to Constantinople, the heart of the Roman Empire. Diocletian, a man obsessed with order and control, was attempting to rebuild a shattered empire. He wasn't interested in grand conquests, he was focused on survival. He implemented radical reforms, financial, administrative, and military, designed to strengthen the empire's defenses and maintain a larger army. His most audacious move was the Tetrarchy, a power-sharing arrangement with two junior emperors, a desperate attempt to prevent civil war. It worked at least for a time, but it unleashed a decade of brutal infighting, a bloody reminder that even the most carefully constructed systems can crumble under the weight of ambition. Then there's the enigmatic Attila again. He wasn't a brilliant strategist, but he was a master of intimidation. He demanded tribute, he threatened cities, and he unleashed his armies on unsuspecting populations. His death in 453 triggered a domino effect as his subject peoples, the Gepids and the Heruli, seized their independence. The Gepids, led by their revolt and victory at the Netto, initiated the process which led to the collapse of Attila's empire. Meanwhile, across the Danube, Deco was attempting to carve out his own kingdom. He wasn't alone. His ambitions clashed with those of Alaric, Attila's son, a man who, after his father's death, attempted to rally the Germanic subject peoples and claim his inheritance. His reign was short and brutal, ending in a bloody defeat at the Battle of the Netto. It was a chaotic period, a scramble for power amidst the ruins of the Hunnic Empire. Now let's travel to Italy, where the Western Roman Empire was slowly, inexorably collapsing. The Emperor Valentinian III, a young and inexperienced ruler, was surrounded by ambitious generals and scheming courtiers. His elder daughter Eudocia was betrothed to Huneric, the son of the Vandal king Gaiseric, as part of a treaty designed to secure peace. It was a calculated move, a desperate attempt to buy time to stabilize a crumbling empire, but the Vandal threat was far from extinguished. Gaiseric, a shrewd and ruthless leader, stormed Rome in 455, a terrifying spectacle of plunder and destruction. He wasn't interested in conquering Italy, he was seeking to punish the empire for its weakness, to demonstrate the consequences of its decline. And what of the Vandals? They arrived in 406, a wave of refugees fleeing the rising tide of Hunnic and Germanic forces. The Hasting Vandals, led by their king, established a foothold in the upper Danube region, a precarious settlement on the edge of the empire. They were a thorn in the side of the Romans, a constant reminder of their vulnerability. Let's consider the Visigoths, a complex and fascinating group of tribes. They were initially invited into the empire as allies, but they quickly became a source of instability. Alaric, the Visigothic king, wasn't interested in serving the empire, he was interested in building his own kingdom. He murdered his brother Theodoric II, seized power, and embarked on a campaign of expansion, pushing his realm as far as the Loire and Aries. He wasn't a conqueror, he was a pragmatist, a survivor who recognized that the only way to secure his people's future was to break free from the empire's grasp. The Franks, a collection of Germanic tribes inhabiting the region opposite the Lower Rhine, remained largely obscure in the early accounts. They were a shadowy presence, their political structure unclear. Their rise to prominence would come later, after the collapse of the Roman Empire, thanks to the ambitious Clovis. Now let's turn our attention to the east, to Constantinople, the last bastion of the Roman Empire. Justinian I, a powerful and ambitious emperor, launched a series of wars aimed at reconquering the lost territories of North Africa and Italy. He rebuilt the walls of Rome, commissioned magnificent buildings, and attempted to restore the empire to its former glory, but his efforts were ultimately in vain. The Western Empire was beyond saving. And then there's the matter of the Goths, a diverse and fragmented group of tribes. The Ostrogoths and Visigoths, two of the most prominent groups, emerged from the chaos of the 5th century, forging new kingdoms in Italy and Spain. The Visigoths under Alaric established a powerful kingdom in southwestern Gaul, a testament to their resilience and adaptability. Let's not forget the story of the Burgundians, led by Gundobad, a soldier who rose through the ranks of the Roman army and eventually seized control of his homeland. He was a fascinating figure, a Roman general who embraced the culture and traditions of the Germanic tribes. Finally, let's consider the historians, the chroniclers who attempted to record the events of this tumultuous era. Jordanes, a Gothic historian writing in Constantinople, drew on the lost work of Cassiodorus, a 5th-century Roman historian, to piece together the narrative of Attila's reign. Gregory of Tours, a Frankish bishop, relied on the same sources, providing a valuable glimpse into the political and religious landscape of the early Middle Ages. The story ends not with a triumphant victory, but with a quiet resignation. The Western Roman Empire had crumbled, its legacy fading into the mists of time. The Eastern Roman Empire, or Byzantium as it would later be known, continued to thrive, preserving the traditions of the past while forging a new identity. But the echoes of the past still resonate today. The story of the fall of Rome is a cautionary tale, a reminder that even the greatest empires are vulnerable to internal decay and external threats. It's a story of ambition, betrayal, and survival, a complex and fascinating narrative that continues to captivate and intrigue us centuries later. So, as the dust settles and the shadows lengthen, one final question remains: could Rome have been saved?